That is the sight and sound of a Ferrari 250 GT Berlinetta short wheelbase, but not an original one. Those are so desirable that, as the joke goes, of the 176 Ferrari made, only 300 now survive. This is one of those. It's called the 250 short wheelbase Revival. It's new and built exactly to original specification by GTO Engineering, a world-class Ferrari specialist from the UK. GTO Engineering will make a Revival from a donor car to your specification for a fraction of the cost of the real thing. And they are so accurate to the original 250 short wheelbase that if you wanted, you could even race one in a historic race series.
Or they will make you one as pretty much the perfect road car. So welcome to the inside of a 250 GT short wheelbase, which kind of isn't one but kind of is one at the same time. The phrase to use is not resto mod. This is not a restored modified car per se, because they tend to have modern bits in them to make them more habitable, more drivable and easier to live with. This is not that sort of car. This is 250 GT short wheelbase as it would have been at the time, or at least it is in this specification. This is a 3-litre car. It has a 4-speed gearbox. The nice thing about it is how light it is. It's not the only nice thing about it, but that is number one thing to know, is this car comes in at around about a tonne, depending on the spec you have. This one is a fairly simple spec, so it is about a tonne, 1,000 kilos, so that's 2,200 pounds. And that means that really you only need a modest amount of shove to be going quite quickly.
GTO has been a classic Ferrari specialist for decades, building, rebuilding and supplying parts for original cars to original specifications, such as making brilliant race engines so that original cars can have their engines removed so they don't get damaged. And while an all-original 250 short wheelbase is a 10 million or more quid car, this costs rather less than that, perhaps £750,000 to £850,000, including a donor car. Yes, a donor Ferrari gives its life to create this, and it's perhaps a less valuable GTE or 330, but GTO says don't worry, they only use donors that are beyond economic restoration. The resulting short wheelbase could have a 3-litre, 3.5 or 4-litre engine depending on your spec. This one is a 3-litre with around 300 horsepower and a 4-speed gearbox. And while in a road car the noise matters more than the speed, this is still a car that weighs just 1 tonne. So as well as loud, it is fast.
So a 3-litre V12 on carbs, making much less specific output than a modern engine would, means that it's eminently drivable, really tractable, and yet still quite brisk. I don't know the exact weight distribution, but bear in mind 3 litres is not that huge an engine by the sounds of, by the scheme of things. There are no turbochargers or anything else. The tyres are not big either. It's got 15-inch wire rims with like 175 profile Avon tyres. They're radial tyres. So this is not like a modern, massively grippy supercar or anything like that, or even a super GT car of today's standards. It is very much of its time. That means the steering is unassisted, and there's a little bit of slack just around straight ahead, and then you can just absolutely feel it just take up, where the mechanicals just take up and start meshing with each other, and it changes direction. And from that point on, the steering is absolutely perfectly accurate and brilliantly weighted. And there's a lovely positivity to all of the controls. There's decent retardation from the brakes. It's quite a firm pedal, and then it firms up and you can heel and toe easily. The gearbox has just got a lovely mechanical shift as it goes through. It's quite long, as you can see, it's quite a long shift, but it's wonderfully mechanical and precise. And then of course, it has this engine. So it's revving at 2,000 revs at the moment. It goes to quite a lot higher than that. So that's second gear, we're doing about 40 miles an hour at 3,500 revs. I mean, there are some great engines in the world, aren't there? There are still really good modern engines. Ferrari's front engine V12 now, the Aventador's V12, and there are good sounding engines even down to Audi's 5-cylinder. But there is nothing quite like this Ferrari Colombo V12. My God, what a thing. Makes a lovely spread of torque as well. You never feel like you're out of the power band. It just builds and builds progressively. It's a little bit lumpy in traffic as it sits there, but it seems happy enough. And when you really get up it, my God, what a noise. So I suppose one of the questions is, should it happen to a Ferrari? Should it happen to a 330 or a GTE or whatever you take, or whatever you ask GTO Engineering to turn into one of these? Well, if you speak to the guys at GTO, they will say, look, when you consider the cars that we restore into these, they are not cars that would be restored anyway. They are too bad. They have a sandwich floor with insulation in the middle. Insulation gets into that, rots the floors out from the inside. And there is not the money in restoring a 330 to its original spec because they're not worth enough. We do not take good cars and make them into this. And then some people have gone, well, I found a Dover car, and they'll get them back to GTO's workshop and go, it's too nice. It's too nice to turn into one of these. What they do is they take sheds and they turn them in to 250s. And you can spend 750 to 850,000 pounds plus your local taxes to get one, but that is a lot less than the 8 figures it would take to get an original. And people have been taking non-original short wheelbases, non-original engines, non-original bits if they want to go racing in them anyway. There isn't a precedent for this. It's not like nobody's ever done it before, and the result is one of the most intoxicating and engaging and enjoyable cars that I've driven. Modern cars are not like this. Maybe the closest in terms of size and visibility and speed is something like a Toyota GT86. It's that sort of easy, balanced, the right size, the right speed road car. It is just mega. So I'll tell you something, that the 250 short wheelbase is my favourite car of all time, and there is a dark blue one in the sort of Rob Walker race colours. It was raced and owned by Sterling Moss and now belongs to Ross Brawn, but it's my favourite example of my favourite model of all time. And I have to say that if this car is an accurate representation of how that car drives, that is not a disappointing choice as your favourite ever car. This is mega. I absolutely, absolutely love it. And if I could, I would.